Bezrat Hashem. Okay, Bezrat Hashem, in the third parak of the Tanya, we're starting these Kabbalistic meditations. And like we mentioned, the Baal HaTanya would spend his entire life on these three meditations. We're only going to touch them now. We're only mamish, just like a Negiah Ba'alma. And then later in the Sefer, when he gets into all the meditations properly, then we're really going to revisit it then. So Baal HaTanya says the following. Look at Ki. Ki ha-seichel shebenefesh ha-maskeles. Your seichel, your mind, inside of that godly soul of yours. When you take that idea that came in through Chokhmah, that flash of inspiration, that spark, that lightning bolt of an idea, of a concept, of thinking about the greatness of Hashem, and you were misbaiting, and you actually started to think about it. Maybe you were sitting on a cliff somewhere in Sedona, Arizona, watching the sunset over the red rocks, and you just had a moment of just the bigness of everything. And then you went into that. That's where the Rebbe is starting. You actually pursued that thought. How God fills all the worlds. Okay? This is number one. It's something called Mamalakol Almin, which is the way that God, in the middle of the third text, this is the way that God, His light comes into this world. So let's go back to our friend sitting on the rocks of Sedona, and he's like feeling and looking, and God's coursing through everything. Again, there's no LSD involved. It's completely just a contact high of reality, that he feels totally that God's light is permeating everything. This is another word for Shekhinah. That God is mamish here. Shekhinah means divine presence, but Shekhinah, what's the root of Shekhinah? Shochein, like a neighbor. That God is Shochein. He's right like here. So that's the godly presence that's right here. That's Shekhinah Kadoshna. It's a female presence. That's also why if a person says, "Well, I know, why is God a man?" So you answer, well, he's also referred to in a female. You don't have to change the siddur to say, he, she. And Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, Elokei Sarah, Elokei Rivka, Elokei Rochel, Elokei Leah. You don't have to do that. It's written exactly the right way. That includes the male and the female element in the perfect balance. So the Mamalakol Alman is how God is filling, God is right here, God is coursing through every single thing. And you start to feel the animation, the power of that orb that Hashem is filling. God is here, God is relatable. Mamalakol Alman is the way that I can relate to God here. It's a real contact with Elokus, where it takes a location, so to speak. It's the godliness in that sunset. It's the godliness in that person. It's a mamale. It's something that I can make contact with. It fills, and it fills all the worlds. It's mamale kol alman. We'll go into this more later. V'soivev kol alman. Soivev kol alman means that God, you fill all the worlds, and I mean all the worlds. Back to mamale kol alman. Whatever the Hubble telescope showed you, that's all, so to speak, a Mamalakol Alman. You're filling all those worlds. But then there's a light of yours that goes beyond, and I don't just mean beyond in a physical sense. It's not like it's outside of like wherever the NASA telescope ended, wherever the Truman Show thing ended, that's Soiviv, that God surrounds the worlds. Like on set and then off the set. Because there's no off the set.
Was me, so.
There's no off the set with God. It's all God. Soiv Kol Alman means that God surrounds the worlds. It means that there's a godly light that's also right here, but it doesn't take on a location. There's a beyondness to things. God is beyond. So there's a God presence that I can sense right here. I make contact with, and then there's a God presence that's like above, that's beyond, that's soiviv. Soiviv literally means something surrounds. That even the visualization of surrounding means there's like a beyondness.
It's not as relatable.
It's less relatable. I usually give the mashal that a guy goes on a date with a girl, and they're schmoozing, and he's like really like relates to her, and he's going really, really well, and he knows all these things, and they giggle, and they, they have the same jokes. They're finishing each other's sentences. It's like really, it's moving. And he goes to the shadchan, and he's like, so Hanu, how's it going? And it's like, it's great. I know everything about it. Like we know everything about it. So they say, like everything. Like there's nothing. It's like you don't know. I know everything. I'm Amish. So that's a lot of Soiviv Kolam. I mean, that's a lot of Mamala Kolam. They're totally related. There's only one problem. There's a part of her and there's a part of him that's also beyond just what you making contact with right now. There's a beyondness to their souls. That's called the Soiviv part. The Soiviv Kolam means the beyondness of her. So let's go the opposite case. Guy goes to go to the girl and says, how was the date? Beyond. Tell me about her. She's so deep. She's so beyond. Can you tell me anything about her? It was beyond. She's so, do you know her name? I think it was like, maybe Rachel, but it could have been Sarah. But what does it matter? It's so much beyond that, Rabbi. Don't you get it? So I'm like, it's not good. Stop everything right now, therapist. We have to, why? Because you need it. The mamala kol alma means like what I'm relating to. The soiv kol alma means that there's a beyond this. You need to have both of that. And I'll tell you the secret. The deeper you get in a mamala kol alma way with somebody, there's always going to be a soivev that's just above you, just out of your reach, that you have to aspire to know that thing that's just beyond, and then make that more relatable. Make that a mamala. You picking up on that? Let's take that to God. That's right, the makif and pinim. Mamala means pinim, and the soiv is a makif. So when it comes to God, you got to go with the mamala. I want to relate to you, Hashem. Tefillin. You learn the halachas. That's mamala. You're talking about it. You're relating to it. You're getting tefillin. But then there has to be a beyondness of tefillin. There's something deeper. There's like an inyan that I never knew about. And then you get into Kabbalah. What is tefillin? What's the ore of tefillin? What does tefillin do in all the world? And it's like, oh my goodness. Then you watch Ichimar put on 15 types of tefillin before a minute. You're like, I thought I knew tefillin, but this is a soiviv for me. It's like, what is going on by the tefillin? And then, I don't know, maybe you hang out with the tzaddik, and that soiviv starts becoming a little bit more mamala. And then the next day you see him put on tefillin, you're like, whatever I thought I knew about tefillin yesterday, there's a new soiviv. It's deeper than I ever imagined. And then the next day, deeper than I... So that is what God and us will be doing for eternity. We're going to be relating to God as a mamala, filling the worlds, what I can relate to, and then always bringing in a higher soiviv kolam. There's going to be a higher revelation of the time of God that I'm going to be continuously pulling into me. Yeah, that's called... Soiviv is always like a yearning for like something beyond. A marriage that's Hashem Yirachim not going well. Oftentimes it's that they just got to know each other, and it's just, I do my thing, you do your thing, the routine of marriage, And she's like, why don't you write me love notes anymore? And he's like, we're good, aren't we? I want you to tell me you love me. So the guy says, I did under the chuppah 20 years ago. Like, if something changes, I'll let you know, but the status quo is, I said I love you, and that just continues. She's like, no, that's not it. You need to be aspiring for a higher soiv. A woman wants to have this higher soiv, and really a guy wants it too. To be seen as like something more, and then developing the relationship at that higher level. And they're not getting stagnant there, saying there's a higher soiv, if I want to know you deeper, then a higher soiv. So that's us with God. That's when a person learns Chassidus, and it could be anything in Panemius. You start taking relationships much more profound. You become a deeper person in your relationships. Shallow people, it's like, yeah, sure, it's good. I'm happy where I am. People who are seekers, they're saying, I don't want to just be shallow. I want to go deeper. I want more slavers and more slavers and more slavers. But at the same time, it can't be slave without mamala. Mamala means it's tangible, it's real. So you have to work on the mamala, get it down here, and then have a higher yearning and a higher yearning. So we said God's light is mamala. And then God's light is slave. By the way, mamala kol amen is the way that God exists and runs the world. The way that He exists inside the Bria. Soiv kol amen is the way that God does miracles. Because God shows that you thought that I was just inside the Bria the way you know it. I can completely change the Bria. I'm above this system. Therefore, I can make the Yam Suf split. I can make the sun stop in the sky. I could resurrect the dead. I'm not limited to the Bria. I'm beyond the Bria. That's called Soiv kol amen.
But isn't the Bria also in part of Him?
It's all Hashem, but it's Hashem's light as it expresses in different ways. There's the God light that comes into the Bria, runs the Bria. That's why Elohim is the gematria Hateva. Nature is God. You thought this was a table? It's God also. But it's the way that God relates in the way of Mamala kol amen, the way that His light comes into the world. But then there's a light of God that's beyond this world. Don't just get caught up in this world, that God is right here. There's a beyondness to God. Nothing physical. This is all abstract. Soiv kol amen is also right here. Also, when you're learning, you can learn a Taisus, and you got the Taisus. Say, got Taisus. Come on, let's go. Next day. We got to invite it. You don't think there's a Soiv kol amen on that Taisus? You don't think Taisus is, that's what happens. You learn the Taisus on Leil Shabbos. After you learn the well, oh my goodness, Taisus is so much deeper than I ever thought. Taisus. Shotaf nar. It's the deepest thing. Te'ena. Mamish. I was speaking to the guys like, I've been cutting figs for like a week. I'm thinking about figs. Yeah. But if he just makes it mamala kol amen, like, yeah, figs, okay, figs. I'm done with figs. It's coming to my ears. No, there's a soiv kol amen. There's so much deeper. So there's the God that fills the worlds. Then there's the God, it's the same God, by the way. It's just the revelation of God. There's a God that's beyond the worlds. And then there's something called kulai kanei kolei choshev. The God that fills the worlds, and even the God that's beyond the worlds, compared to who God is, that means atzmusai. God, in His essence, all of the world and all the beyondness of God in the world is nothing compared to God. Okay? There's no questions. There's nothing to ask.
What does your mind do with that?
That's why you spend the rest of your life working on this. This is the structure of the 3 meditations that form all of Kabbalah. You start with Mamala kol amen, Soiv kol amen, and then all of that I got to, once you're in Soiv kol amen, you're like, mamish, leibdik. You're in it. And then even that, compared to God, is like nothing. So you just get to a place of just simcha, oinig, pleasure, just the awesomeness, the beyondness of everything. And that's where the flame comes in, is you get to that place of, oh my goodness, and then you're like freaked out by it, so you recoil back. But then you want to be close again. And then you recoil. And then you go, that also you do in a mamala, and then a soiv, and then kol kamel choshev. Mamala, soiv kamel choshev. Like I said, today we're just touching. Yeah, there.
How does someone not start to feel far from God and less interpersonal with God and meditating on how outside of the system and
Because you come to Mamala kol amen and God's so close. Back to our friend in Sedona. God is coursing through me. Personal, loves me. And that kulei kanei kolei choshev, that also, that essence of God is choosing me, wants a relationship with me. Not just the mamala, even atzmuso. Asher kiddushan mitzvaysa. Vitzivanu. You've given me your mitzvahs, Hashem. And you want us. You made the world because you want us. Gracious, Bishvil Yisrael, Shemik gracious. It's a gift. God is in love with us. Haboicher be'ama Yisrael be'ahava. I one time heard Rabbi say, like, you know, you have like a cute phone call, like, says, no, you say you love me first. So she's like, no, you say it. No, you say it. No, you. Who's gonna say like I love you first? No, you hang up first. No, you. So what did God do? So the Rebbe says, like, God said I love you first. Haboicher be'amu Yisrael be'ahav. I said it first. And then we say be'ahavtas Hashem lekecha b'chol levavcha. And then we say, okay, Hashem, we love you. But Hashem said it first. He loves us. He loves us. Yeah.
What is the kavanah you have for the third meditation?
You have to ask the Baal HaTanya. It's a meeting of justice. It's just experience.
So you just get
I'm not telling you guys, you
just
need
get
to
high enough
become
level
masters
to
in Kula Kamei Kala Chashav. You're just touching this now. And sort of, I want you just to touch that place and just feel that. Things are very experiential. You feel that. And then tell me how you felt. There's a certain element of just like, wow, like the awesomeness. Everything about Torah is supposed to bring you to a realm of like the beyondness of everything, the awesomeness. It's sad because so much of that has been like squeezed out. And it became like dried out. But all of what we're into is like the beyondness. The infiniteness of everything. That's our thing to humanity. This is our thing to give humanity. If a person needs a yid, he should be able to give them that infiniteness moment. That's our gift, the monotheistic gift to humanity. Is let me help you touch Hashem Echad. What do you think Avraham was doing? I'm sure he was also teaching Rabbi Akiva Eger's and Tosfos. I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was. And I'm sure he did in a way that everyone was like, oh my goodness. But Chazal say he Yikra B'Shem Hashem. He told people God is one. And he didn't just tell them, he gave them an experience. Help them feel. That's been our message to humanity. That's the message to humanity. God is one. And not one in a sequence of numbers, like we were talking about, one as opposed to two. Says God is one, but not like 1, 2, 3. Like in the category of gods, there's one. But there's also a world, and there's stuff, and there's iPhone Pro Maxes, and there's guys named Patty Holmes who throw pieces of leather around.
Not so much anymore.
Oh no, he's done?
Yes, he's not doing very well.
Oh really?
He's still,
okay.
Yeah. Doing most
Maybe
of
he's doing
the
tshuva.
team.
It's like, what am I doing with this, this chazir ball? I gotta make, 120 years, eventually that's it. That's it. Yeah, maybe he's doing tshuva. I hope he is. I hope he listens to this and comes to Hashem Echad. That's it. That's our message. So it's not one in the category. It's there's nothing but God. Kulai kamei kulai chashav. That's God. There's nothing else. So after you do some of these meditations, you're right. There's a feeling of like, so do I exist? So you guys do. Don't worry. I promise. It's not an illusion. You do exist. It's kind of deflating though. It's like, especially when you learn Shar Yicha ve'emunah. We need to get you into the next book of the time. It's when you start learning Shar Yicha ve'emunah. Now we're gonna, Mirza Hashem will finish the first book, Shev L'Beinu. But you get into Shar Yicha ve'emunah, which is all about this point, by the way. And this is really, they consider like the masterpiece. Maybe it was in the first book that he wrote, of Tanya. It's all about that there's nothing but God, mamash. You go through this and you're like, I've had chavrusas in this. Like, I'm just sitting there in the chavrusa, like, you go into a universe of total reality. And I'll tell you, there's a feeling of like bliss. It's like bliss, like you know what reality is, really is. Not like, oh my goodness, I'm all alone. To the contrary, you see there's nothing but God and you're in that. It's so warm. As opposed to the world is selling you things that make you feel lonely. You go into this world, you're so in it. You can't shake a person like this. It's like, he's in there. Ein oid milvadai. This is really like, Mr. Hashem, I want to do it together. We'll get to the first Sefer first. Okay, so those are the three categories of meditation. Okay? So when a person does that, and maybe you even felt it now, know when a person gets to that place, maybe people are even feeling this right now, there's a certain amount of like awe, of like moments of maybe even butterflies in the stomach of like, oh my, this is real. It arouses feelings. That's what the Rebbe is saying. And there's a certain amount of busha, of like, oh my goodness. After I do some of these meditations, I'm like, and I really watched Netflix today? Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Because the hugeness of God is just like engulfs you. She'ein l'soifa tachlis. There's no end to God. But pachad Hashem believe when he feels he can be gripped. Pachad means emotion. The shuv yislav libo. And then what happens afterwards? The Rebbe says, you start to get on fire with love. Yislav libo ba'ava az a karish pe'esh. The first feeling is like an awe, but then there's a feeling of I want this. I want to be close to this. This can also happen by a tzaddik. There's a feeling of like, oh my goodness. The tzaddik like sees everything, knows everything. And I gotta put this one so he doesn't see through my forehead. But then there's a feeling like, I want to be closer to this. I want to So the same thing with Hashem. The meditations can bring a person like an awareness of, oh my goodness, like being gripped by it. But then a feeling of, and you love me? I want you. I want you. I want you, and this is all for us. It's a gift for us. Look at these lashonos. You start being fired up. That you only find that in Chassid, I should say. I just want you, Hashem. And my nefesh, my soul just expires with excitement for you. My soul is just expiring. That's Mamal Kalam. Soma nafshi lalakim. That's Sefer Kalam. Soma nafshi. I'm thirsty for something. I don't have it. I'm thirsting for it. That's like Sefer. V'ksiv Soma lacha. That's Atzmusay. That's the third darga. Atzmusay. That's how the Baal HaTanya, the Sfarim say, brings 3 psukim. That siman whom you say that eish, and that sima'oin, that like I'm yearning, I'm thirsty, is this fire inside of you. Remember we explained that the animal soul has the 4 elements on the side of bad. What's eish on the side of nefesh bahamis? Anger and gaiva and all sorts of hardiness. But on the side of nefesh elokis, it's like passion, eish, hatoila, v'kmosh kaz v'tivim, v'chein hu be'etz chayim. She is Saida Eshu Balev. That Esh is very powerfully in the heart. Makor Hamayim. Va'alechus mehamoyach. And where is Mayim generally? And Lechus, that's in the Moyach. It's cold. The mind is cold calculated. The Kmosh Kos Ve'etzchaim Sharnun. She Bechinas Chochma. That's the Chochma. My mind is Chochma. Nikra Mayim. Shebenef Shalakis. Vishar Hamidus Kula Hain Anfe Hayira Ava, the Baal HaTanya ends this little piece, that all the other midas, all the other emotional traits, is really just flowing out of the 2 super sections, the mega midas, which is called love and fear. Love always means to come close to something, and fear means to recoil from something. Love is I'm excited about something, so I'm moving towards it. I'm warm. Cold means I'm stopping. It's like a stop sign. I'm frozen up. Fear is like a frozen, and love is a moving. As fire is warm. So the mind has to put a stop to certain things. And so the mind is, like I say, like a kalpa litvan. with a cold, calculated mind. If it's right, I do it. If it's not, I don't. If it's right, I do it. But when I do it, I don't do it in a kalta way. I do it with a varmkeit. But I start with a kalta cup. I start with, is this the right thing to do? Is this the right thing to do? Should I be doing this, yes or no? You have to make a cheshbon. Should I be doing this? I was talking to one of the guys earlier, like, he's talking about doing all sorts of trips and stuff. There's already people, should I go to Cyprus or not? So the question, why are you going to Cyprus? What's up with Cyprus? So tell me, what's the tachlis of Cyprus? I am. What's the tachlis? What's the tachlis? That's the mind. It's got to be piercing. Is it the right thing or not? Then that comes. That's the year part. The Ava is then fire all in. All the other midas, i.e. Tiferes, Netzach, Hagdisai, Malchus, that's all just coming out of them. Everything's coming out of either I move towards something or I stay away from something. All the other midas is just an extension of either going forward or coming back. It told us, like the Rebbe says in another place, Mitzvah Shem, tomorrow we're going to talk about Das. We should be saying, all two.